Good afternoon guys and welcome back to the FM Scout YouTube channel with me, Teach FM. In today's episode we are revisiting our Into the Future series where we take a current Football Manager 17 wonder kid and see how he progresses when left to the AI alone. As you can see on your screen, it is of course the Portuguese powerhouse that is Ruben Neves. However, before we get stuck into today's episode, I would just like to push you in the direction of my channel, where I'm currently in charge of Manchester United. We are heading deep into Season 3 now, chasing that elusive Champions League trophy. So if you could maybe pop by, take a view of a couple of videos, maybe even drop a cheeky little sub, that'll be grand. The link will be in the description. So Ruben Neves, a player that is known to many of us FM fans, especially if you've been playing the last couple of years. The lad has been well known as a wonder kid for at least the last game or two. And as we can see, his stats speak for themselves. So if we look at his media description, he is of course described as a wonder kid. Currently with no player traits, so it will be interesting to see how that progresses when left to the AI. And at the moment, valued at only £6 million, he's earning £10,500 a week while playing at Porto, but he is 5% owned by his agent. Now, of course, I use a traffic light system, so we can see that his sort of excelling stat at the moment is the one you would want from a player who sits in that sort of DM/CM, deep line midfield playmaker position. It is his passing. His passing currently sits at 16. However, if we take a look around, Neves has got 14s and 15s going off in a nice few areas, so rather than dwelling too much on how his stats look right at the beginning of the game, we will go and take a look at his history and we'll compare them when we get to the age of 24. So if we go to his career stats, he's currently been at Porto for 5 years. Last season having 22 appearances, 24 appearances the season before, so it'll be interesting to see how long it takes for a big team to come in and buy him. And on his landmark achievements, of course, only being a young lad at the moment, it's all basically about debuts. His first senior goal, his first senior debut coming in for 2014 for Porto, and then getting his international debut for Portugal against Luxembourg in 2015. So what we'll do now, guys, in the namesake of the series, we will head into the future by 5 years to see how a 24-year-old Ruben Neves is getting on. And what I think will be interesting is to whether he's still playing his trade at Porto. So here we are then in the year 2021, and Ruben Neves is evidently moved away from Porto, currently playing his trade at Manchester United, and check out his value, £43 million, now earning 160 grand a week with a first team contract there in Manchester. His media description has changed to tireless defensive midfielder, which I'd like to think it would have stayed at world class, but not the case in this situation. His player traits is that he stops play and he likes to switch the ball to the other flank. But what we are here to see is just how much his attributes have improved over the last 5 years. As usual, we're using the traffic light system, so we can see that there has been some greens added, but let's take a closer look at his technicals. So his crossing's gone up by 1, as has his first touch. His long shot's also climbing by 1, his long throw's going up by 1. Marking going up by 2, which is good to see in the position that he's playing. His passing's gone up by 1, which needless to say is tremendous. Penalty taking going up by 3, which I believe is neither here nor there, not really. And he has also gained 1 in his tackling. His technique remains at 15, which was good to start with, to be honest. So at 24 years old, his technicals are coming along strong, but of course, playing in that sort of central midfield position, he's the type of player that's going to excel as he gets much, much older. Onto his mentals now. His anticipation's gone up by 1. His composure's gone up massively by 2. His decisions have also gone up by 2. 2 on his determination, 2 on his leadership, 1 on his positioning, 2 on his vision, and 1 on his work rate. So mentally, he's progressed massively. It's probably a lot to do with the fact that he's now training at Manchester United and they obviously have a very good coaching setup. But those mentals at the age of 24, knowing in the position that he plays, he's only going to see them rise as he gets older. Very, very good going by Ruben Neves. Now his physicals, which you may consider one of the sort of less important sort of traits of his game, as long as he's got, in my opinion, as long as he's got a good bit of stamina and strength, he's always going to play well in the middle of the park. But as we can see, his acceleration's gone up by 1, his agility's gone up by 1, balance up by 1 also, and his jumping reach has grown by 1. Pace also only going up by 1 and strength going up by 1, but his stamina has gone up by 2, so he's gained 2 on his stamina, 1 on his strength, which I think are massively important for his sort of position. His agility as well would probably be more important. Natural fitness remaining at 14. But yeah, 180 centimetres tall, big unit to sit in the midfield. But all in all, relatively good progression. However, I imagine when we see him at 29 is where we're really going to see the best of him. So it has to be said that Ruben Neves, of course, moving to Manchester United, it's probably a decent move for the lad. Hopefully we'll see him progress somewhat as a player. But playing in this deep line playmaker role, we're going to head into his career stats. And for a change here on the Into the Futures I've done, we're not going to be necessarily looking for goals. What we are interested in is him having a good average rating. Maybe take a look at his assists. But ultimately, sat in the middle of the park, if this lad's getting over 7.2, maybe 7.3 a season, in my opinion, the first 5 years of his career have been a success. And looking at it, Ruben Neves has not disappointed. In his first year at Porto, he had 20 appearances, got himself a couple of assists, but played with a 7.27 average rating, which is bob on. In his second season since the game started, he managed to get 33 appearances, 7 assists, 4 player of the matches, and managed to get a whopping 7.51 average rating, which is just insane. Before, in his third season, since the start of the game, putting in a decent shift with 33 appearances, managed to get 8 assists that year, 6 player in the matches with a 7.39 rating. At this junction, Manchester United came knocking, paying £40 million, which I would consider maybe relatively a bargain. I know that Ruben Neves does have a £52 million clause in his contract to be released. But getting him for any cheaper than that, I think, is a decent bit of business. So in his first year at Manchester United, which was the previous season to this one, he managed 31 appearances, 7 assists, and with a 7.33 average rating, his first year in England, it has to be said the lad has done well. So as we check the lad's landmark achievements, it has to be said Porto normally quite dominant in the Portuguese league. However, Benfica must have been doing the job this time round, because the first trophy Ruben Neves has won is a Premier League title with Manchester United in the season prior to this one. And as I check Ruben Neves' personal accolades, for a change, which is something we don't often see on this Into the Future series, he has actually picked up a relatively decent award, winning Young Player of the Year in that same year that he won the Premier League at Manchester United. So well done him. So once again, we will head into the future, where we'll find a 29-year-old Ruben Neves, and I would have thought a player who's really going to be at the peak of his powers, especially playing in the middle of the park. So here we are then in the year 2026, and Ruben Neves is still plying his trade at Manchester United. He's now picked up 87 caps for Portugal, grabbing himself a couple of goals, valued at £26.5 million and earning £185,000 a week. However, he is now on a rotation contract while at the club. Media description is now what we like to see, a world-class midfielder. He has also added dictates tempo to his player traits, and as we can see on the face of it, more greens in his mental stats, which is what we like to see when we're looking for these wonder kids as they get into their latter years, especially the ones who play in the middle of the park. So what we'll do now is take a look at Ruben Neves' technical stats, and it's got to be said there's not been a terrible amount of growth. However, we have seen his technique increase by 1. He's managed to polish his game somewhat at the age of 29, and we would expect has somewhat become an asset to both club and country. As we move on to his mentals, again, only small incremental increases, however increases nonetheless. His composure, leadership and positioning all increasing by 1. It's exactly what you want to see from your central midfielder, especially if they're playing in that deep lying role. As we move into the physical attributes now to have a closer look at those, this is where ordinarily if we're looking at a fast striker or a fast inside forward or winger, it's where the players really sort of start to decrease at the age of 29. However, for Ruben Neves, his decrease is only come in the way of 1 stat, in which his stamina's gone down by 1. However, his agility's gone up by 1, so a relative balance. I think at 29 years old, the lad's become well-rounded, and I would expect him to somewhat progress more as he gets into his next couple of years. So what we'll do now is we will take a look at his career history, see how he's been getting on since we was last here, and as we know, he'd played his first season at Manchester United, getting that 7.33 average rating. He's obviously still at the club, and since then he's got a 7.12 with 2 assists, a 7.16 with 2 assists, a 7.25 with 5 assists, and then the following season he only managed to play 11 games, getting a 7.11, and then slightly increasing on that the following year with 17 appearances, managing 4 assists and a 7.13 average rating. It has to be said that it does look like his game is declining as he's going. However, there may have been a couple of bad injuries in the run in there. However, we will go ahead and look at any landmark achievements, see if the lads added any silverware or, of course, any personal accolades. And what is good to see in his time at Manchester United, he has managed to win himself a good amount of silverware. He managed to win himself a Community Shield in 2021, followed by an FA Cup in 2022, a Community Shield in the same year, a Premier League in 2024 along with another Community Shield, before winning the European International League in 2025 with Portugal. I did then go to check if he'd had any more personal accolades. Unfortunately, he hasn't. He's only still got that Young Players Player of the Year, which he won in 2021. So we've seen Ruben Neves at the age of 24 and 29. What we'll do now is we're going to go ahead into the future one last time to the point of retirement to see whether Neves stays in the game as a staff member or just retires from football completely. So I've actually had to sim forward to the year 2033 to find Ruben Neves retiring. For the first time since I've been doing the Into the Future series, I actually have a player who's decided to hang up his boots, and I don't know, maybe go away, be a TV pundit or something, but he's certainly not staying in the game as a manager or another staff member. One thing we can see in his little biography right up here is that in 2029 he joined Atletico Madrid for 3.6 million. He managed 132 league appearances, scoring 4 goals, and he also managed to lift the Copa del Rey in the year 2030. However, that Copa del Rey is the only bit of silverware Ruben Neves went on to win since he lifted the European International League with Portugal in 2025. However, what is great to see, he actually went on to win a European Championship Best Player. We'll just take a look. There we go. In the year 2028, he won the European Championship Best Player. So just another personal accolade, which it has to be said, not many players have done in the Into the Future series. He's actually managed to win the Young Players Player of the Year in 2021 for Manchester United, followed by the Best Player in 2028, which of course will have put him much into his latter years. He was 31 years old, and at that point had become very, very dominant for Portugal. We can also see he ended up with a whopping 131 caps for the Portuguese, grabbing himself 7 goals, and it has to be said, genuinely a pretty stellar career. If I had to sit back now and make a decision based on this experiment and this experiment alone, I would genuinely say if you've got the money, Ruben Neves would be a buy. Because like I always say in these Into the Future series, when left to the AI, they progress somewhat. However, I truly believe that if you know what you're doing with these young wonder kids, you will always get better out of them. So there we have it, guys. Ruben Neves, Into the Future, all done and dusted. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. If you're new around here, consider hitting the subscribe button so you can keep up to date with everything here on FM Scout, which leads me perfectly into fmscout.com. If you've not checked it out, head over there. It's got all the latest graphics, tactics, news, views, you name it. Also, the FM Scout editor has just arrived on the scene, so if you want to go check it out, head over to fmscout.com where you'll find all the information for it. And other than that, guys, I've been Teach FM, and I'll catch you later. See you in a bit.